My name is Eva. Briefly about myself, I have a background in human nutrition and food systems, and I'm a recent member of the Climate Cleanup intervention team. I wanted to briefly introduce the 4 themes of climate cleanup. But basically today we're going to look at land stored carbon out of these 4, as this is the intervention that we're working on at the moment. According to the 2020 drawdown report, land sinks have a huge potential to sequester CO2, and this is over 240 gigatons CO2 equivalents until 2050. And just to put this into perspective, this is roughly the global CO2 equivalents in 2020 were roughly about 50 gigatons. So that is much less, and huge potential for impact here. But land stored carbon or land sinks are very broad, and agriculture has a role to play here, and specifically regenerative agriculture, which we will go to in a minute. So moving forward, this is conventional agriculture as we know it. Hectares long fields of monoculture crops grown mostly under artificial conditions. And we don't often realize, but this is where most of our food today comes from. And this takes a toll on nature. It does something to the ecosystem around it. And this causes lots of loss of biodiversity, has impacted water quality, but also soil fertility, and impacts the content of the carbon content in the soil as a result. Here, on the other hand, we see an example of a regenerative farm. But what does it mean? What is regenerative farming? In short, it is connecting the farm ecosystem to the bigger system that it's in. So to not see these 2 things apart, but connecting them to each other, basically. It's a holistic approach to agriculture that takes into account more than just food production as the farm's output. So it looks at indicators such as biodiversity, water, soil, and basically the health of the entire ecosystem. It's about partnering with nature instead of competing with it, about restoring soil organic matter, and diversity is key in many aspects. Important to say is that no regenerative farm system is the same, but here are some hallmarks and practices that are commonly associated with it, such as cover cropping, crop rotation, crop and grass diversity, reduced inputs such as pesticides, and reduced or no tilling. So what are we doing at the moment? At Climate Cleanup, we are now working with the province of Gelderland to develop a tool for regenerative agriculture that can support the province in reaching their climate targets, and it supports farmers at the same time. The goal of this tool is to calculate the potential of regenerative farming in carbon storage and to estimate the earnings in holistic farming credits. These credits are meant to reward farmers for their climate impacts, and CO2 capture is part of that, but it's not the whole picture. And we want to move a little bit beyond that. And how do we do this? We start by assessing the multi-layered ecosystem benefits and trade-offs of regenerative practices using a simple carbon proxy. In other words, we gather data and insights to approximate the increase of carbon in the soil after implementing regenerative farming practices. In the form of an app, these 3 systems are converging: geodata, ecosystem services, such as soil fertility, biodiversity, and pollination, and regenerative practices, or in the Netherlands, we call it nature inclusive, but with it, we mean roughly the same. Then we calculate the impact of nature-inclusive practices on the ecosystem, on different variables. And we use open geodata to account for soil type, soil saturation limit, and this is used to assess the potential of soil carbon sequestration at any geographical location. This is how it will roughly look like, but the app is still in beta, so it's going to change. But to give you an idea, also the app is initially going to be in Dutch, so apologies for our non-Dutch guests today. I will keep it very brief. The nature inclusive practices are shown here on the top left with some extra information about each practice, what it means, and how it can be implemented. Then the flower below here, it shows what benefits each practice or a combination of practices offer in the ecosystem. And this is going to be, or supposed to be, an interactive tool that moves based on the different practices. So you can really see how it affects your farm and your ecosystem. And on the back, we have a geographical map with various layers. And this one shows the soil type per parcel of land. And we have some basic soil information, land information. Then, so the impact of the practices is shown in the flower. And water regulation is one of these ecosystem services that is shown here. But for each ecosystem service, we have made an assessment. So all of it is included. And the map that you're seeing here shows the parcel layer. So it shows all the parcels of which the data is available. That's it for this app. If you would like to know more, or if you're interested in this work, feel free to reach out to me or any other team member.